Okay, so this is how we access the roll servo on the Comanche 250 so that we can change out the PCB board if you happen to have that complication. First we'll remove this plate. I've already undone the screws, so we'll remove that. Then we peel the carpet back out of the way. And then there are screws all the way around that we have to remove. I've gotten most of those, and so I'm going to remove those, and I'll be back with you in just a second. Okay, I've removed those screws. We can remove this plate now. Flip it up out of the way. And here is our servo. Now, because that has these bars in the way, we're going to have to remove these bars in order to get access to the servo. Okay, before we remove the servo assembly, we want to make sure that we've labeled this one left and this one right, because they're not interchangeable, and it's easier to make sure they're labeled now instead of putting them on wrong and having to take it apart later. Okay, so what we've got now is we have these two clamps. There's one here and one that I've already removed. We have to remove those clamps. If you loosen it, this top wire will just slide right. This top wire right here will slide right out of that slot without having to take the clamp completely off the cable. Okay, so we've removed the roll servo. We're going to remove these two portions here, and that'll expose these screws here at the bottom. Okay, so now we've removed the cover off of the top of the autopilot. It just had two screws that held it in place, and then just kind of had to wiggle it loose. As you turn it to the side, on the side where the 9-pin connector is, you can see a PC board right there. There are 4 screws here on the bottom. We're going to remove those screws and then slide the board out at us. So now I've slid the PC board out, and we're going to remove that connector. Now once it's apart, you'll notice that there are 3 plugs. Mine came already marked with the middle one having a mark on the middle of it. So you're going to have those 3 plugs, and they will go onto the new PC board in just a few minutes. Okay, so this is the new board, and it has an R for roll servo. The other board has a P on it for pitch servo. We're going to take these cables right here and connect them 1, 2, 3 in the same order that they came out, and we make sure that these pins right here are identical to the old board. So that one had just one jumper right there, and this one has one jumper right there. So now we've put them back into place. This dot that was on the plug, that's the middle plug. You've got 3-pin, 2-pin, and 2-pin, and the middle plug is a 2-pin with a dot on it. So now I've slid it back into place with the plug coming on the outside, and then I'm going to put the 4 screws back into place. So I've now installed the 90-degree connector on the roll servo. I made sure that the pins 2, 3, and 4 all had continuity going through to the other side so that we had no issues. I did find out that you don't need to remove this plate when you do the actual installation, because you still have access to these other 4 screws that we use to remove the circuit board. So if you're watching this before you do the installation, when you get to that part in the video, ignore it. Okay, we've now mounted these brackets in place, and we've screwed our connector into place so that it's all ready to go. We're now going to turn on the autopilot, push the button to set the elevation mode, and then we're going to go to maintenance settings. We'll turn that till we get to LNAV servo set. We're going to push the H mode button till that arrow appears, and then we're going to turn on our horizontal nav servo. Okay, with that servo set, we come down to the autopilot, and there's a tiny little screw or little hole right here, and we're going to put a little cotter pin right into that hole, and that locks it into place so that we can then it's back in the factory position like it came from the factory. We'll then go ahead and connect our cables up and go to there. Okay, now we have put this back into place. We've secured our cable ties with the aileron centered at the neutral position. We're now going to pull this pin, and make sure when you do your removal on your installation that you have this one labeled as left, this one labeled as right, because they're not interchangeable. Let's go do our maintenance checks.